Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world.
So today we have Marcus Weiss in the house. In fact, we have the Marcus Weiss experience in the house today. I'm so excited. Marcus, say hello to the Positively Healthy Moms.
Hello there, Positively Healthy Moms. I am indeed Marcus Weiss. And you said we have the Marcus Weiss experience. How does that differ from Marcus Weiss? I would say,
because this is an experience. Being with you is an experience, one that I think people will not forget because you're just like a whole nother level, that like the experience of being around you, your energy, your joy is just so contagious. So that's what that is.
well, thank you very much. And I want to ensure that everybody does get an experience before they log off. If all they had was this amount of time, then may I leave you with this. But wow. Okay, that's it. Now, you can call that ADHD, H or something, or you can call it what I like to call it intentionality.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. You're just being intentionally what? What is that? What is that you're doing? What is that?
What I just did and what I hope I left you with was one of these, which is to get the corners of your mouth above the horizontal into some kind of a smile. And even if it's very, very little, even if it's the slightest bit, it still gets you into an uplift. So that's an intentional leaning into uplifting your thought, which uplifts your feeling, which hopefully will uplift the action that you take next. And so for me, I happen to sing. For me, I happen to come from an acting, directing, performing background. So I can do things that expand my instrument a lot. I can do loud things. I can do melodic things. But it doesn't always have to be that version.
Okay. What would be some other examples? Like because personally, I'm not a singer.
Okay.
I'm also not an actor. So what do you think? What can you teach me today and teach all the moms about how to just have this instant joy and energy that you just exude?
Okay. May I invite you to consider that you just did that. You just did exactly that. What you did was you sat up straight in a way. You must have taken a deep breath in order to express what you had to express. You actually put a smile on your face and you moved your hands in an energetic way. And that put you into this place of expectation, this sort of positive expectancy of what I might have to offer. So I want to congratulate you for putting yourself into that space of, all right, well, what's next?
Yeah.
So the moms can kind of do the same thing. Just literally sit up, stand up if you can, or lift your head up if you happen to be in bed, just a little more. Sit up a little straighter, stand up a little straighter. Take a breath in and at least think a smile on your face. Open your eyes a little wider and then look at the first thing that you see. And then, and this takes a little bit of imagination. And this is where the intentionality comes in. Consider one positive thing about that thing you're looking at. Just make yourself do that. So would you like to try that?
Yeah. I mean, mine was easy. I have a really cute plant over in the corner of my room and the sun is shining in. And I was like, wow, that plant looks really cool right now because it's real spiky. And so parts of it are hitting the sunlight and parts of it are in the shade. And so I was like, that's interesting. It looks cool and neat to look at.
Fantastic. That's great. And it's funny you should say that because I just did the same thing. I took a deep breath in or just a breath in at all. Okay. I put a tiny sign on my face. I looked over to the tree that we have and it is a fake Christmas tree. Okay. And I looked at it and I said, plants create photosynthesis and they release oxygen into the atmosphere that we breathe in. And that I think is good news.
It is really good news. Yeah.
So if you happen out there, positively healthy moms, if you happen to be in a situation where somebody's crying, you're stuck in traffic, there's too many groceries to have to get at the store, something, if you just break your pattern in that moment by taking a breath in, putting a smile on your face and looking at something and putting this tiniest positive spin on it, you've broken your thought pattern that might spiral into overwhelm. At the very least, you've broken your thought pattern into something positive.
Yes. Wow. So that was experience number one. I have a feeling that there's many more coming.
Sure.
So I love that idea. It's what we would call as, coaches. So I want to just backtrack for 1 second. Marcus and I know each other from the Neurencoding Institute. He's also a coach, and I want to have him, explain everything that he does and what his life is all about.
Sure.
And then the one other thing I want to say before you do that is Marcus is clearly not a mom. However, he is a dad and he has kids. And so I thought he would be so awesome to bring in today because, I think what we've done has already spoken for itself. But he is here to talk to us about joy and being energetic and being engaged in our life and with our kids' life and how that can trickle down. So I'm getting into a lot. So Marcus, why don't you start with kind of who you are, where you came from, and why you're here with us today?
Okay. My name is Marcus Weiss. I was born in New York, and then my Swiss mother took us over to Switzerland at the age of 7 when my parents got divorced. And I grew up in Switzerland. And my mom's side of the family was very artistic, and there was actors in there, and there was painters in there, and there was textile designers in there. And so I grew up with this sort of vision of life that you can be very creative in your life and in how you put it together. And the reason I share that is because on the one hand, that was super inspirational. And then on the other hand, it created, I think, this sense of me that there's all these possibilities in there. And if I just get the right one, if I just choose the right path, then I'll be happy. If I just choose the right one. And somehow over the course of my life and in high school, I did very well. I graduated valedictorian. I went to college. I went to Dartmouth College, pat, because I'm freaking amazing. Ivy League.
Smart guy. Yeah.
Except that, it's coming. Somehow it all caught up to me. And I had this, and I became very depressed in college.
Really?
Yeah, there was, yeah. I became very depressed.
I can't even imagine you being depressed. I just can't, I cannot imagine that. But okay, I believe you, and that's a real thing. And I get it. Like when you have that pattern of thinking in your life, the whole, if I do this, then I'll be happy, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of a trap that we all get in. If I have this house or this car or these kids or this job or whatever, then I'll be happy. So if that's the pattern of thinking you're in, that makes sense. And that's where you found yourself, I guess.
And that is exactly where I found myself. And the universe just put the brakes on. I ended up leaving college I took a year off. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to get into the theater. I followed in my brother's footsteps and became a theater major. I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do like my brother because I looked up to him. And then in the theater, I found this sense of being in character and getting into certain feelings and certain actions on stage produced this, applause from the audience and this connection, celebration, and joy in the theater. I'm like, and that's, I believe, why a lot of actors come alive. It's like, I can be myself. I can be this thing. And what they don't realize, or at least not consciously, is that they may or may not be doing that in their own lives. Mm-hmm. Meaning that they're not creating a script for themselves, that they're running in their heads and not creating the feelings that serve them, that lead to sort of actions that uplift their lives. And they're only doing it on stage. And so I was super, super happy when I was on stage and when I was acting, but somehow in life, I still had those limiting beliefs, and I still had the things that really held me back. And eventually, after decades, it just caught up to me. And I managed to manifest and magnetize an incredible life in Vegas. And I had success in the theater industry here. And I had a wonderful wife and 2 amazing kids. But somehow in COVID, right before COVID hit, I didn't want to get out of bed. Oh. And by that time I wasn't, and I know you and I, Laura, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get out of bed, really. My life had gotten to this point where I just felt like a leaf in the wind, just, whether it was overwhelm and stress. And I was doing 7 different things because I'm interested in a lot of things and going from one job to the next and not really being home a lot for and with my family. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I literally would just open my eyes, and the first thing that I would think was, not again. Yeah. Just this sense of like, oh God, here we go again. Yeah. Here we go again. And then at the end of the day, Laura, I would be like, but right before my eyes closed, I'd be like, thank goodness that's over. My favorite time of the day was when I was unconscious.
Yeah.
And I relate this because so often as parents, especially parents of small children or multiple parents, we're just like we're getting through the day.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
just struggling to get through the day. And look at my arms. I started to just reenact this whole juggle. And then juggle at the end. Thank goodness I'm going to sleep. Thank goodness I'm going to sleep. And then you wake up and you anticipate the day. You anticipate the day being a certain way. And how is that possible? If you know what the day is going to be, that means you're a fortune teller.
Right.
And nobody's a fortune teller.
Yes. Yeah.
And the reason I share this, Laura,
Mm-hmm.
because we can create our day.
Mm-hmm.
We can change the script inside. We can change how we feel. We can change the actions we take, and we can change what we have as a result of that. Mm-hmm. And if we change what we have as a result of that, we can change what we give. And to me, that's what showing up and life is all about. And during COVID, I found, some things and some tools and through wonderful mentors, including, Joseph McLennan III, which I think is a mutual mentor of ours. Mm-hmm. And these things have really, really helped me. And since then, my mission has been to help others lean into those same process-driven things that get us into life-affirming thoughts. And by life-affirming, I mean things that make us want to move forward, looking forward into that next step, looking forward to that next hour. And then when we open our eyes in the morning, that we say, it's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
That we do that on purpose. And then we see a great day ahead of us. And then we feel a little better and do a little better and actually make that come true. So at the end of the day, when our head hits the pillow, we go, that was okay. That was good. Or that was great. Or that was extraordinary. I can't wait to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. That's that intentionality and the positive expectancy and the repetition kind of all in one, right? Where you're just going to, instead of like the old way you were doing it, where you were in what I call survival mode and extreme burnout and exhaustion, fatigue, all those words fit really. But there's so many moms that get caught in that cycle because they are very overwhelmed with juggling, like we did like this, the kids and the stress and the carpools and the jobs and the dishes and the laundry, everything, I don't even have to explain it. We all know what we're talking about. But then you made this huge shift to have this intentional decision to wake up and to almost, look for what's going to be good about your day. You're looking for those things. And that just can make a huge difference. It's, that particular activating system, that we all, know that where, if you're looking for something bad, you're going to find something bad. If you're going to look for something good, you're going to find something good. So, the expression, what you seek, you shall find. And so you were intentionally planning your days to be in some way fantastic or exciting or good or positive. You could go to bed at night being grateful about them. And then that cycle then started to do an upward turn instead of that downward turn. So did I capture everything that you said?
Yes. Yeah. I hope you did. And it's funny. Yeah, exactly. And in retelling that story, Laura, as you were thinking about that story, you were sort of feeling into it. And then you expressed in your body, like literally, and I know I'm drawing from the acting background really, but it happens in our lives too. When you were talking about the juggle, when you were beginning, we were talking about what we all go through, and especially as parents, but in our lives in general. See this face, see this body, it's hunched over. See the way my hands are doing this, my face is doing this, and then this happened and that happened. You got to the end of it, and then you said, "Did I get that right?" And you were in a different place in this little Zoom square,
right?
And yet, if you in this moment shut down this meeting from that place, you would go like, "Oh, well, let me go do the dishes."
Exactly.
Or we just go like, "Oh, what's next?"
Yeah.
And you have to remember and congratulate yourself and anchor the fact that you did that and that you, Laura, are capable of feeling that way, of thinking that way, feeling that way, and acting that way. So that in those stressful moments, you remember that is at least a part of who you are. I'm sorry, I get so passionate about this.
I know. I'm so excited.
Because you have to remember that is also part of who you are. Moms, dads, whoever's watching out there, for the love of goodness, remember that that is a part of you. And remember, especially in those moments where you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Even if you just remember it in here, wait a minute, that is also me. Even if you don't change it to a smile, even if you're in the middle of something, at least you remember that you're not just the overwhelm. And that recognition, you should celebrate just that recognition, because at least you had the recognition.
Yes.
And that will be the seed for next time. So give yourself grace too.
I love that identity piece that you just brought in. I wasn't that expecting to be part of our conversation, but you're right. Like, there's a difference between saying I am overwhelmed versus I feel overwhelmed. I am implies a more permanent solution or situation as far as who you are as your identity.
Oh.
And I feel is a temporary fleeting emotion that can pass when you're wanting to connect with your higher self, your kind of more positive version of yourself. Right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Laura, for that distinction. When you are in those moments, make sure that you say to yourself, I feel overwhelmed and I am not overwhelmed.
Right.
I am these other things.
Yes.
Also, I am a person who can, maybe 5 minutes from now, maybe half an hour from now, maybe later today,
can manage, can be positive, can overcome whatever the situation is.
Right.
So I'm so excited because I want to share my memory of you, which was several years ago. We were in a challenge, a Facebook group challenge. And I remember you doing the dishes. And you were so excited and you're like, I'm doing the dishes and this is amazing. And I'm having so much fun. And, and I'm Marcus Weiss. And, and I was like, I want to do the dishes.
It's amazing. That's a good one. I want to do the dishes. Yes. I remember that video. In fact, specifically, isn't that incredible? Yeah. You can affect somebody by these tiny things you do.
You did. You did. Exciting? Yeah, you did, because I used to hate dishes. I really did. I still honestly, it's not like it's like that top 100 things of my day. But guess what? Now I find more pleasure than I did in the past, right? It's not that I actually enjoy the dishes themselves, but it's the meaning of what these dishes represent that has changed for me. So I truly love cooking for my family. I truly love that they have good food to eat. I truly love that we get to have the quality time together. And I truly love that they are healthy enough to be able to, eat the food that I provide for them. And so as I do these dishes, to me, that's a mom, well done. You cooked a great meal. That's what the dishes now mean to me. They don't mean work or stress or exhaustion like the way they used to. And it's because of you that you literally changed. And then the thing is, you can copy and paste that towards laundry or other, household things that just feel so mundane, but it's like, what do they represent? And how can that change you?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad. It's such an honor and that's such a treasure. And I'm so happy for you that you found something that can, in a moment, change the way you feel, not just in that moment, but about life and about life in general. I like to say "and," right, instead of "but." Yeah. And about life in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember that video. There was a gentleman in Africa who, I believe he's in Ghana, who was affected by the very same video.
Really?
Yes. And I thought, and I was on his podcast as a result of that video. Like, the dishes. Right. And so, Laura, and it's really, really important to, I think in this moment also, some things are easier said than done, because underlying a lot of these things that we're talking about is, and I believe this is important to share, is our psychology. And by that, I mean how we think about ourselves, other people, and the world.
Yeah.
And I think that is oftentimes what gets people a little stuck. And that's okay. We've all been there. Which is, people share, other people around them share, hey, look at something and be grateful for it. And they look at it and they know intellectually that they should be grateful about this. And yet it somehow doesn't drop down into a positive feeling. And I think that underneath that might be, and I share this because I was there.
Okay.
There was an underlying sense in me that the world or that life was not ultimately benevolent. There was something underlying, that ultimately, and I think I got this from my parents, I think that there was something ultimately melancholy about life in the end, that somehow, at least it's for me, that something was that it was melancholy ultimately, or tragic, or an emergency. And I remember, so I would look at the dishes, let's say, right? And I would go like, my children just had this wonderful meal. It was as a result of what we cooked. Like this was years ago, and I would go, and they ate this meal, and something in me, instead of being like, and doesn't that feel great? Something in me was like, yeah, and one day they're not going to be home, or yeah, and it's one day that's going to come to an end. And so I would look at all these things that should make me feel grateful, but somehow it would trigger melancholy for me.
Oh.
And I don't want to give any people any ideas about this.
Right.
But the reason I share this is that in case you feel the same, then give yourself some grace, because it just might be something you might want to explore about your general vision of life itself.
Wow, that's really cool. I had not quite thought of that before, but what I really liked the first part of what you explained, how sometimes we can be intellectually grateful, meaning we have a thought that's of gratitude. But I love this part here where it didn't drop into the feeling part, because it's like sometimes I like to think of, there's a great book, by the way, that's an equations book. It's like math equations, but it's of emotions. So it's this feeling plus this feeling equals this feeling. It's really cool. I'll share it with you sometime. I can't remember what it's called. But it almost like felt like when you're explaining that, I heard like almost like a neutral event or something, like the dishes, that could be like neutral in emotion, but then you added this plus sign, and then you added a negative thing to it. And so therefore, positive plus positive equals positive, and positive plus negative I'm not a great mathematician. But
Ultimately, it's negative.
Thank you. And so it's weird how like you recognize, or great that you recognize, like somehow it was like because of your family or because of your upbringing, like you were able to bring it to your conscious awareness that you had some type of negative mindset that was this doom and gloom and sadness or whatever all that was, because like how your parents kind of raised you. And so that's interesting, because I think a lot of people go through life and they never really like have that chance or that opportunity to reflect on those types of, real subconscious beliefs, like you said, our thoughts about ourselves, others in the world around us. It's like, that's a thought that's very deeply ingrained, that was probably from your early childhood. And so it kind of just stuck with you, that pattern, until you consciously said, no, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to think, oh gosh, my kids are going to leave the house. That's what the dishes mean to me, right? I just want to enjoy the moment, or be excited about it, or realize that, hey, if they do go away, they'll come back, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. There it is. Right. And here we are. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And again, you're right. Right. And so, yeah. And even just describing that, here we are again. When you described those thoughts and that thought process, boom, there you were, just in a better state, in a more beautiful state. And isn't that amazing? And if we can recognize that, which is why I'm trying to recognize it right now and celebrate it right now, then we can wake up in the morning and go, oh, hey, if I say those things to myself on purpose, repeatedly, with discipline, perhaps at first, if it's unfamiliar to you, then I will feel better, and I will do better. And give yourself credit and celebrate yourself and say, yes, you did that. That is something that you can do, because I believe, the reason we're here is to share with people things that they can do to make their lives better, or it, and by that I mean shape their lives in such a way that serves them.
Yes.
That serves what they want.
Yes. And, this makes me think of what you and I talked about recently, which was sometimes people, what you're describing is a fantastic way to do this. And it's like, I like to give the practical tools, and that's what you're
Yes.
giving us, the hands-on, how do you do this?
Mhm.
But there are some people who aren't even quite ready to take that step yet.
Okay.
And it's because somehow they view themselves as life happening to them.
Mm.
And, I get it. The economy's tough. Inflation is crazy. The grocery store bills are insane. A lot is happening in our world
Mm.
that is making it difficult. And especially this time of year, it's Christmas. And we need to buy gifts for our kids and the teachers and the school bus drivers and everybody, the teachers and the coaches and all that stuff, right? It can be overwhelming. And so what do you say to the moms who are just feeling a little bit like stuck or trapped by their circumstances? What do you say to them?
The first thing that I would say is you've already survived your toughest days. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's really
powerful. Literally, I mean, that helped me. That means up to this point in your life, you've had a toughest day. And you may not even remember it, but guess what? You're here. And just that thought means, excuse my language, you're a badass.
Yes.
And if that helps you, you're a badass.
Yeah.
Or you're magnificent, or you're amazing, or you're confident, or something.
Right.
Some of us, even that identity piece, you're a badass. Maybe that's too much. Maybe even the word to be happy, maybe that's outside of the sphere. If you're a teenager, sometimes that's out of the sphere. Just like, hey, that means you're a survivor. That means you're a good person. You're a person who can persevere, or whatever that may be. But you're here now. That means that you can do it again. And you might say to yourself, well, I don't know what's going to come out. It might be even tougher. Yeah, but you'd be a billionaire if you could foretell the future. I would say stop there and just acknowledge that you're a badass, you're a confident person, you're a person who perseveres, and know that you can do that in the future. And just that will give you a sense of not just hope, but faith.
Ooh.
And faith to me comes after hope. Faith is we're looking forward into something. We're looking forward into possibilities. It might be blurry. We might not have a vision yet. But we have faith that if we move forward in our lives, whether it's tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, it's going to be a brighter day. It's going to be a better week. It's going to be a more magnificent year. That to me, that's faith. Hope is the beginning. Hope is the seed. Hope is the chin going up. Hope is turning your face towards the light. And faith is that feeling of, okay, something wonderful is going to happen. So to those of us who are in the middle of it, know you're a badass because you've survived your toughest days. That means that you can survive even tougher days. And that thought, label it faith. And if you've got faith, then you have that little seed of, I can do it. I can do it. And very importantly, very practically, at the end of the day, whether it's when your head hits the pillow, or whether it's you have time to have some tea, or whether it's in the bath with a notebook or your phone, preferably by hand, but even if it's just in here, recount the things that were great that day.
That's such a powerful tool.
And please, I'm using the word great on purpose. Beware of setting your bar too high. Lower your bar. Lower the bar. I'm sorry. Did I say that immediately?
You did.
I'm sorry, but lower the bar. So if I go, whatever it is, lower the bar for what is great. I use the word great because guess what? For some people, just doing this is a reason for the surgeons to come rushing into the room and have a parade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if you went through the day, if you put shoes on, if you took a breath, if you shopped, then you lower that bar and you say, that was great, that was great, that was great, that was great. And so at first it might be like, you might be tempted to go, oh, that wasn't great. No, you remember this bald head telling you, no, that was great. And then you train yourself, you condition yourself to give yourself credit for every little thing you do.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That whole entire, so the thing I felt really empowered, like I really felt that when you said your worst days are behind you. And that just to me gave me just this instant like feeling of strength where I'm like, yeah, if I did that, then I can handle anything that's coming. But that prepared me for any challenges that do come. But in the meantime, I'm not going to focus on all this stuff because I'm just going to lower my bar and say everything is great, right? Like, and I don't mean like in a woo-woo, like, toxic positivity type of a way. Like we're not going around saying everything's great, but but what we can do is appreciate even the smaller things. Like, they always say, appreciate the small things. Right. I suddenly, when you were talking, I had this vision of when my kids were little, because I have 4 kids and they're all within 4.5 years of each other, which is crazy. They were like, literally like 4.5, 3, 2, 1. I know. But anyway, I remember like trying to get them in a car was hard when they were little, was challenging, like all the shoes, and one had to pee and then we had to do this and we had to get them buckled and I forgot the bag and blah, right? Imagine all that. And it's funny because it felt hard and it felt challenging and I felt like exhausted after. And what I'm thinking now is if I had gotten to where I was going, like home to preschool or wherever I was going, I could have just been like, oh my gosh, that was great. We made it, right? Who cares that we're 20 minutes late, but we made it, right? And just like lower the bar because as moms, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform at a very high level. And I personally am not a perfectionist, but I in some areas I was and still, tend to have tendencies towards. And other moms, we all have our own topics that we are like, oh, we want it to be like this. We want it to be like this. We have this image of what it should be. And when it's not that, and we feel kind of disappointment or judgment by others, the other moms or the other preschool teachers, or, in this situation that I'm kind of describing in my head, I realize like all we have to do is take a deep breath and be thankful that we're alive. We have a breath. Our finger went like this. We moved. We had the day. We got our kids to where they were needing to go. Whether they were late or not is besides the point, right? Like we did it, and to be happy and grateful and like, yay, I'm amazing.
Yeah. I'm amazing. Because in speaking of children, that is what ultimately moves us forward. Because when we were little, when we were tiny, right? We took a first step. We fell over. And our mommy or daddy or whoever was taking care of us didn't look at us and say, you suck at walking.
Right.
They didn't do that. No, they didn't do that. What they did instead is they took their finger, they pointed straight at us and they said, you did that. You're amazing. And then what? Clap, 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 clap. And clapping is energy and confidence, right? It's the confidence that was a good thing. And it's the energy to want to do more of it. And then the baby, excuse me, this is theater coming out, but the baby's like, which is basically saying, what did I just do to create this feeling of connection and celebration and joy? Oh, I took a step. So I'll take another step.
Yeah.
And then he took another step, you did that. You're amazing. Clap, 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 clap.
Yeah.
And that's how we learn to walk. And very importantly, perhaps most importantly, that's how the babies and the toddlers condition themselves to look forward to doing something, to look forward to learning, so that their whole systems are being programmed to go, life is happening for me. This thing is something that is going to add to my life somehow. And then babies don't have a lot to do. They don't have a lot of coordination. They just put things in their mouth. So for them, it's like, how is this happening for me? How is it going to taste good? Oh, or whatever. Or how is this? And then eventually, as we know, life life happens, and then we're conditioned to feel like life happens to us and all that. But really, this sense that life is not happening to us, life is happening for us, to me means how can we condition ourselves to go, I did that. First of all, I'm freaking amazing. This is great. And also, how is this moment something that is great? And by great, how is this moment or this thing something that's adding to my life? Get back into that baby toddler thing of looking at, for lack of a better word, sort of the positive in it, the optimism of the situation. And by optimism, I just mean, what are the what can I choose to do with this? How can I choose to think of this?
Yeah. So, that's exactly kind of where I was hoping you would go with this, which is, I was describing the mom who's stressed out at Christmas with the bills and all this. And the opposite of all this stuff is happening to me is that life is happening for me. And, I can almost hear, I always like listen to my audience, like they're not here, but I can hear them. I can hear what they're saying. Perfect. And they're saying, no, but you don't understand. Right. But I have this and I have that. And so, right. Saying. And, what I would say to that, and I think that you would agree, is when there is a challenging situation, there's always a positive that you can find. You just have to look for it. And there's two ways you can do that, or probably multiple, but the ones I have, which you probably would agree, which is what did I learn from the situation? Or how did I grow from this situation? So, that's kind of putting positive thoughts about in theory, a negative or a hard or a painful situation that we can always find. If we look hard enough, we can always find a learning in some way or a growth in some way from any. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. And if you'd like to take a specific example, for example, let's say I'm overwhelmed with bills, or I'm overwhelmed with how much Christmas is going to cost, or the holiday season, or something like that.
Yeah.
And you talk about, there's always a learning, there's always a growth. Okay, so let's just say you're overwhelmed while you're shopping. You felt overwhelmed while shopping. You looked at your bills, and it's so much. You chose not to pay the bills during that day and just put it aside. And at the end of the day, you're brushing your teeth at night. Guess what? You can learn from that. You may not have taken any actions. You didn't go like, the bills are great, or like, you know what? I'm grateful that we even have a roof over our head. You didn't do any of that. There's still something you can celebrate at the end and learn from. And that is this. You are a person who is capable of not curling up in a ball in a corner and weeping and hiding behind a couch. You're a person who faced huge bills that you in that moment felt you couldn't afford, and you still got to the end of the day and you're brushing your teeth. You're still choosing a life-affirming action. So guess what? You're a badass.
Yeah.
You're a badass for making it through a tough day.
I know. I feel like I nailed it. Like I took myself through that whole experience, and I'm like, I killed that. I killed it today.
You killed it today. Now, you lowered your bar. You lowered your bar. Yes, you did. I'm not saying don't pay your bills. I'm not saying that's not a way to grow, but there's always an option of positive thinking. And it's not toxic positivity. It's just, hey, why not choose to give yourself some grace and go, okay, you still left the mess. The bills are still unpaid. And yet you're not, hiding behind the couch.
Right.
You're brushing your teeth. So
that's a win. That's a total win.
That's a win. And condition yourself to consider that a win. And if you go like, but stop. And this is something that we can learn, together. Should we speak again? You teach yourself to stop it if you try to consider other options. You find that thing that's a badass move, and then you stop there and you celebrate the fact that you recognize that you learned that you grew in that way.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, for 1 second, I'm going to read some of the comments coming in because we've got,
Oh.
I am a badass. Someone else
Yes.
said, amen. And then persevering in flipping my perspective towards the positive. So I think the listeners are listening and they're really loving your message today. They're just like kind of absorbing this because they're all fired up and, you know, giving lots of comments about that. So I love that. I you know, it just makes such a difference because, you know, I think you can tell, like, I'm a feeler, like I feel everything. And that's kind of like my, you know, there's like skimmers in the pool. It's like, that's how I process information is through my feelings. And so as we're talking, I go through these feelings of like, what would it be like to be curled up in a ball behind a couch? It would be pretty bad. It would be pretty bad. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. And so knowing that I have a choice, option A or option B, I'm going to choose option B. I'm going to say I'm amazing. I'm a badass. I, you know, killed it this day just because I'm still doing my stuff and I'm not curled up behind the couch. Right?
Yep. There you go. Right. And then once you choose that and you have a good experience with it, continue to focus on what you do want. Right? Like, oh, I do want that. And then if in a moment of overwhelm, you remember this moment, you remember Laura and I here, and you remember like, oh, I can just go, then just for goodness sakes, do that. Give yourself some grace, give yourself permission, do your best to cut out your, you know, judgment of yourself. And these are all things that we can grow into and with practice and with help and with mentorship or whatever it may be, you know, you find the ability to do that. Then do that for goodness sakes. Keep giving yourself permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep giving yourself permission.
Okay. I'm going to pause my conversation with Marcus Weiss. If you'd like to hear more, listen to my next episode. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.